therapist Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and this week's video is on emotionally immature parents. And this is honestly one of my favorite topics to talk about. It pretty much makes its way into a lot of my client sessions and is responsible for a lot of the anxiety or perfectionism or imposter syndrome or whatever else the client is dealing with in the present moment. It can often be traced back to an emotionally immature parent. So before I kind of dive into what exactly that is and sort of what we can do about it, I just want to preface this by saying we are not placing blame on these parents, right? I truly believe that most, not all, but most parents are doing the best that they can with the resources they have under the circumstances. And for most of these emotionally immature parents, it's because they had emotionally immature parents, and so they never really learned how to be emotionally mature and have those healthy relationship dynamics. So that's sort of where generational trauma is born, but I am making this video to create awareness so that we can break those cycles. So what is an emotionally immature parent? They often struggle with self-regulation and empathy, which means that they might not always be able to manage their emotions effectively or understand the emotional needs of their children. So if you grew up feeling like you were kind of always walking on eggshells, not really knowing what was going to set your parent off, or maybe you still feel that way as an adult, or feeling like your parent felt more like another kid in the house as opposed to a parent, those are indicators of an emotionally immature parent. And this can manifest in various behaviors, such as being overly critical, emotionally withdrawn, or unpredictably reactive. So emotional immaturity in parents can be categorized into four main types. And it was Dr. Lindsay Gibson who originally kind of came up with these different categories. But the first is emotional volatility. So these types of parents might react to situations with extreme emotions that seem really disproportionate to the event. Let's say a child spilled a drink. This might trigger an outburst of anger or an excessive display of distress. So these parents often struggle with self-regulation, regulating their own emotions. And this makes their emotional responses unpredictable and at times really overwhelming. Kids of these types of parents might learn that they have to walk on eggshells and kind of try to predict or avoid behaviors that might trigger this emotional explosion. And then just having that unpredictable emotional environment can lead to a lot of anxiety and difficulties in forming healthy and stable relationships for the child. So they also might develop like a hypersensitivity to others' emotions because they're constantly on high alert for how other people are going to respond. The second type is the passive parent. So these types of parents often avoid dealing with issues directly. They might ignore problems or downplay their significance. They avoid confrontation and responsibility. So this passive behavior can sort of manifest as emotional unavailability, where the parent is physically present but doesn't really engage meaningfully with their child's emotional or physical needs. So children with passive parents, they might feel neglected or unimportant. They might feel like they have to fend for themselves emotionally. And so this can result in having difficulties asserting themselves in relationships, and they may not have learned really how to express their needs or expectations effectively. The third type of parent is the driven parent. So these parents are typically preoccupied with their own agendas. So this could be related to career and work, personal interests, or other goals. And so they might prioritize these over spending time with or responding to their children's emotional needs. Driven parents often exhibit high levels of personal ambition and might even expect their children to conform to these sort of strict, maybe unrealistic expectations. So kids of driven parents might grow up to only feel valued for their achievements, not for who they are. And this can really lead to issues with self-esteem and identity. They might also emulate this behavior and become really self-critical and driven in their own lives. And finally, the rejecting parent are those who tend to withdraw from their children. They show little to no interest in their lives, and they might actively reject attempts by their children to seek comfort, support, or even basic interaction. So they're kind of checked out. And this could be due to the parent's own emotional issues or mental health struggles, or simply an inability to connect emotionally with others. Children of rejecting parents often struggle with feelings of abandonment or low self-worth. They might internalize the rejection as a reflection of their value. And then as adults, they might have difficulties forming secure and trusting and healthy relationships because they fear rejection and undervalue themselves in social and romantic contexts. Having an emotionally immature parent can lead to a lot of long-term psychological effects, such as insecure attachment styles, which can affect relationships throughout their lives and make it difficult for individuals to trust others, maintain emotional balance, and feel safe in relationships. And then from a neurological perspective, this constant stress in childhood, like dealing with an unpredictable parent, for example, can really affect the development of the brain. And it can impair the development of the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation. So this can make it harder for children to manage their emotions and make thoughtful decisions later in life when they're adults. So when someone grows up with an emotionally immature parent, they often learn to cope by becoming overly independent or conversely overly needy and dependent. Some may adopt a caregiver role from a young age and they're sort of parentified. Maybe they're always looking out for their parents' emotional state and instead of focusing on their own needs, or they are expected to take care of a younger sibling and sort of be in that parentified role for a younger sibling. So again, we're not placing blame, but rather we just want to gain awareness and understanding of the background and characteristics of emotionally immature parents so that we can sort of unpack our childhood experiences and seek healthier relationship models. And so therapy can really be a beneficial tool in understanding and healing from these childhood experiences. And there are specific types of therapies, such as internal family systems, which I've talked about in other videos, that can really help to kind of tease apart some of the impacts of having an emotionally immature parent. So the legacy of growing up with an emotionally immature parent can be pretty profound, and research suggests that the environment a child grows up in plays a crucial role in shaping that brain development, like I talked about, and stress response system. So prolonged exposure to emotional unpredictability can really lead to a heightened stress response, which can manifest as anxiety or depression in adulthood. So this is something that I really work with my clients on teasing out and learning tools to better manage those heightened stress responses and sort of learn how to regulate their nervous systems. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear from you if, any of the 4 parenting styles sort of resonates with you, if you can see any of those in either of your parents. And I would love to just hear about your own experiences and any questions that you might have. So I hope you all have a great week. I'll see you next time.